Smartphones with some great specifications for cheap? I'll bite on that one. How's it going, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and I've got two awesome AT&T Android devices in my hands. They're both $49.99, and they're packing some pretty decent specifications. The HTC One VX, available now at AT&T with a dual-core Snapdragon S4 CPU, beats audio, Android 4.0, and a really nice build quality that's similar to all the other One Series devices. Then there's the Pantech Discover, a new device from Pantech into the high-end smartphone realm with a 12.6 megapixel camera, stereo speakers, and an HD display. Which one's going to come out on top, we'll find out in a dogfight battle. But before I kick it off too far, let's thank our partners at Best Buy Mobile for giving us devices like this for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway game. When you walk into Best Buy Mobile to get either one, you'll walk out with unbiased suggestions. Whether it's AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, or Verizon, or prepaid, they'll help you get the device that's right for you. Let's do it. Dogfight time. One VX, Pantech Discover. Let's see which one comes out on top. Woof, woof. That was a terrible woof. They're actually identically priced, but they've got some different specifications. This is the HTC One VX, available on AT&T for $49.99, packing specifications like a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 CPU, a 4.5-inch display, not HD, keep that in mind, 540 by 960 pixels, 5 megapixel camera with 1080p HD video recording capabilities on this device. It's got 4G LTE capabilities on AT&T, a 1,810 milliamp hour non-removable battery, and Android 4.0, also known as Ice Cream Sandwich, so an older version of Android with HTC Sense version 4.1, which interestingly enough is an older version than Sense 4 Plus, which is what we've seen on the Droid DNA and on the HTC One X Plus. Then you have the Pantech Discover, launching at $49.99, available now. Specs-wise, a little bit higher spec. It's got a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 CPU, so faster clock speed, 4.8-inch HD display, 720p HD, so a higher resolution display. Got a 12.6 megapixel camera on the back with 1080p HD video recording, higher spec camera, at least from a megapixel standpoint, 2,100 milliamp hour battery that is removable, 4G LTE connectivity, and Android 4.0 with Pantech's custom user interface. So much like anything else in this world, HTC, a brand that's been around for some time, beautiful build quality here, kind of resembles the One series of devices, fits right in with the family as the One VX. And then you get the Discover, kind of a newcomer to the smartphone, or at least the high-end smartphone realm, but the specs are fantastic on this device, and considering it's $50, it beats out in a lot of ways some devices that are $100 to $150, making it a really solid option. It's dogfight time. Let's take a look at both of these. They're running Android 4.0, but you can see there are dramatic differences between the overall way that these look and feel, thanks to the fact that one is running Sense 4.1, which is HTC's UI, one is running Pantech's custom user interface. Out of the box, though, you see the typical AT&T stuff. Code scanner, family map, locker, navigator. Drive mode over here, which I'm a huge fan of AT&T Drive mode, helps you curb that texting while driving because AT&T is big on that It Can Wait campaign, which is a fantastic campaign that I strongly support. Ready to go over here on both of these devices. Smart Wi-Fi on the Discover. You've got device help, I imagine, on both of these. Yes, you do. And again, you'll see that the overall look and feel is a little bit different, which is interesting because Android, you know, this is the part of Android being open. Very different looking, running the exact same version of Android. So keep that in mind as you're working with both of these devices, or as you're looking, I should say, for which one's going to be your next smartphone, or perhaps the next smartphone for a family member. Live TV installed on both of these devices, and of course you have TuneIn Radio, most likely. Let's see if we can find TuneIn. No, you do not have TuneIn Radio over on this one. I stand corrected. TuneIn Radio over on the HTC device, and then of course YP Mobile on both units. Now, a couple of differences here. In addition to the screen size, 4.5 to 4.8 inches, you have physical buttons here, capacitive, back, home, and recent applications. Over here, you've got on-screen buttons, back, home, recent applications, and a standalone menu button, so you can easily click between. Now, HTC is a little bit different. They have that menu button, but the ability is through the recent application. So what I have to do is come in here to settings and take a look at display, for example, gestures and buttons. I come down here and go to recent applications. I can press for menu. I can press and hold for my recent apps. So if I'm in texting, for example, see how it pops up. Whereas over here, the button kind of moves around depending on where you are. So you've got static buttons up here in the top in most applications. You've got search, compose, and menu. And then over here, you've got your menu button kind of that moves around depending on the application. Build quality-wise, a little bit different on both of these devices. This really, like I said, resembles the One device. Micro USB charging port at the bottom, volume rocker over here on the side, power button and 3.5mm headphone jack up top, camera on the back, Beats audio integration over here as well. Pantech's is a little bit different. Stereo speakers on both sides, really nice stereo speakers. Kind of a nice design as well until I drop it and break it and cause some issues. Volume rocker over here, 3.5mm headphone jack, power button up top, and then your micro USB charging port down there at the bottom. So a little bit of a different look and feel, curved on the back right around the camera where the nice big stereo speakers are, but otherwise this one resembles a 1X. This one is a little bit more plasticky. This one feels a little bit better in the hand, and because of the smaller display, it's a little bit easier to hold. That said, I do like this device a lot. It's got a meaty feel to it. It feels like a high-end device, or at least a kind of a high mid-range device, if you will, as opposed to some of these other devices out there that are very, very plasticky. So we'll run back through here. I want to show you messaging just briefly here to show you the differences. We'll compose, show you the keyboards that come pre-installed. Obviously, HTC's keyboard is the predominant keyboard over here, and you do have a swipe-like input that you can use as well. So I can say the quick, which I'm always terrible at this, but you know what, we'll try, and it's hard to do when it's on the desk as well. That's not brown, but we'll pretend like it is. Brown, Fox, and I'll go back to this. So it's a 4-inch display, or excuse me, a 4.5-inch display, and this is the older version of Sense's keyboard. Now, take a close look in the store between this and the 1X Plus if you can, because there is a huge keyboard difference. It doesn't look huge, but a huge difference between Sense 4.1's keyboard and Sense 4 Plus's keyboard. They made significant improvements to the keyboard on the Droid DNA and on the 1X Plus. I still find the keyboard on this slightly hard to type on. That said, in landscape mode, 4.5 inches should be more than enough for most people. Over here you get a couple of different options. Swift key, you get Android keyboard, and then you get Google Voice typing as well. And I should say the Quick Brown Fox is happy. No, Quick Brown Fox is, what did I say? It's happy it's Thursday. How about happy it is Thursday. Quick Brown Fox is happy it's Thursday. Both of these devices, mostly fast in day-to-day performance. Portrait to landscape, relatively quick, although I'm seeing a little bit of lag right there. You've got 7 home screens on both of these devices, just kind of running through some of the basics here so you can take a look. There we go. 7 home screens on both of these devices. You can, of course, move those around and customize those as you see fit. And taking a quick look at the widgets on both devices, press and hold and you can go into HTC's widget area. Then we'll come down here to this kind of custom look and feel. Pantech's user interface is interesting because it is a relatively new user interface and they're evolving it as they move into this high-end smartphone realm. That said, I'm pretty impressed with, given how young it is, I'm pretty impressed with how far they've come in such a short period of time. Although I will say HTC Sense, even 4.1, is really, really developed and has a nice user interface. It may be a little bit bloaty, but I do find it really useful in a lot of ways. You've got HTC widgets as well as Android widgets. Then over here, you've got kind of like a TouchWiz version 4, if you remember back to the Galaxy S2 look and feel here, where you've got your widget drawer down here at the bottom, and I can just pop up a calendar widget and bring it right up to the top, or we'll just do the agenda widget, for example, and I can customize and move this around as I see fit. A little jittery from time to time, but otherwise relatively fast. And then there we go. Make it larger and customize it. Now our notification bars as well, show you the differences here. Again, keeping in mind both of these are running Android 4.0. It's kind of interesting to look at the differences. You've got your settings shortcut button on top of both of these, but then you've got some quick settings over here on the Pantech Discover. Vibrate, Wi-Fi, GPS, NFC, Bluetooth, motion recognition, data, all those different options that you would probably use on a regular basis. And we'll jump into settings so you can take a look. One of my favorite settings over here on the Pantech device, because they are coming from a period where they were really popular in the feature phone market and perhaps the older individual market. You know, grandpa had a Pantech flip phone. They're really trying to broaden that gap and really make these appeal to users of all demographics. So what I do like is this change experience option where you can come in here and select the easy experience. When I select it, come out, it looks just like a feature phone. So if somebody's moving over from a feature phone, maybe you got your mom or your grandma a smartphone for the first time, this is an easy way to learn the features of the device until they're comfortable going into full Android, and then you can switch it back over here with personalize, and we can change the experience right back to the standard Android experience, and you can pick up right where you left off. So that's a nice feature. Personalize over here. HTC does an incredible job with personalization. I talk about this in every video when I do a Dogfight or when I do a review. They have great wallpapers, great lock screens as well, a couple of different styles to choose from, regular, productivity, photo album, weather, friend stream, people, clock, stocks, a lot of different options here. So I can bring up weather. And yes, it's a little bit more of a battery hog. Keeping in mind this is a 1,810 milliamp hour non-removable battery. It could be an issue. Haven't had much of an issue with battery life though. Standby time is quite good on this device. It could be a little bit better when it comes to moderate use. You know, I do find the battery. We'll talk about that in part 2, but it is better than what I expected. Keeping in mind this battery is bigger than what the original 1X came with. It's a nice improvement, even though I'd like to see HTC work on a little bit bigger batteries. So you've got some shortcuts down here. You can bring up the ring to unlock the screen, or you can bring an application down into the ring to quick access that application. Over here, you've got a couple of different lock screen types as well. Happens to be one of my favorites, where I've got shortcuts to phone, messages, Chrome, and Facebook, and you can customize that as you see fit. Or you can just come down here and unlock it. It's one of about four lock screens rather that this device has, if I recall off the top of my head. Let's see. Go into security, and we'll take a look at the lock detail. Yeah, you've got visual lock, which is the one I prefer. Modern lock, which is typical Pantech, which is what it looks like out of the box. Slide lock, a typical slide lock that's very similar to stock Android 4.0. So I turn it off and back on. This one, and a bunch of different options there. So definitely some personalization on the Discover side. Don't write it off because it doesn't have any, because it does have some personalization. That said, HTC's had much more time to come up with personalization, and I like the little abilities like changing the lock screen, and then of course coming into my skin and changing those themes around as well, where I can come in here and do like an aluminum skin, for example, and really make the device my own. Stay tuned for part 2. We'll talk about speed tests, including quadrant standard and network speed tests. We'll talk about camera and what makes these devices different in part 2. Stay tuned.